This is where we ended part 11, and it was on Nicole Atkinson's second interview. And this is going to be the phone interview with Luke Apple. And it says, on Tuesday, August the 14th, 2018, CBI agent Tammy Lee was asked to respond to the Frederick Police Department, which was located there, to assist with a missing person investigation. Upon arrival, agents with CBI and FBI were briefed regarding a missing persons investigation involving Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. This report documents my phone interview conducted with Chris Watts' supervisor, Luke Apple, on Tuesday, August the 14th, 2018. And then the synopsis reads, on Tuesday, August the 14th, 2018, CBI agent Tammy Lee was asked to respond to the Frederick Police Department, which was located there, to assist with a missing persons investigation. Upon arrival, agents with CBI and FBI were briefed regarding a missing person investigation involving Shanann, Celeste, and Bella. This report documents my phone interview conducted with Christopher Watts' supervisor, Luke Apple, on Tuesday, August the 14th, 2018. Action taken. On Tuesday, August the 14th, 2018, at approximately 7:15 p.m., I called and spoke to Christopher Watts' supervisor, Luke Apple. Apple is currently a production foreman for Anadarko. Apple explained Chris has worked for him since April of 2016. Apple stated on Monday, August the 13th, 2018, Chris was working on an oil field out by Rogan, Colorado, which he described as being located approximately 30 miles east of Brighton. Apple said Chris had 3 oil wells they needed to get up and running, and Chris was headed straight out there. Apple said he was not sure what time Chris arrived at the oil well site and would have to review his GPS records to know for sure. Apple said he was not at the well site personally because the guys do their work and can just call him if they have a problem. Apple said it was his understanding that Chris was at the oil field referred to as Survey Ranch almost the entire day on Monday, August the 13th, 2018. Apple said he received a phone call from Chris on Monday, August the 13th, stating he was leaving Survey Ranch to go home because he couldn't get a hold of his wife Shanann. Next, I spoke to Apple about the GPS system in their work vehicles, and Apple explained the GPS is activated as soon as someone starts the ignition in the work vehicles. Apple said the GPS also records any starts, stops, and the duration of any trip. I asked Apple to explain the conversation Chris had with him on August the 7th, 2018. Apple said Chris told him he and his wife were having some issues that they were trying to work out. Apple said Chris did not tell him he and Shanann were separating, but warned Apple if he saw anything goofy on his GeoTab GPS log that it was possibly due to him, Chris, staying at a friend's house. Apple said Chris did not tell him the name of the friends he may be staying with. Apple said he told Chris to send him a text if he was ever going to stay anywhere at his residence. Apple said he never received a text from Chris stating that he was staying somewhere else. Apple said Chris had never mentioned any issues between he and his wife in the past. I asked Apple if he was close to Chris, and Apple explained Chris was one of 13 men he had working for him, and Chris had worked for him for over 2 years. Epple said he did not associate Chris outside of work hours. I asked Epple who Chris was closest to at work, and he indicated it would be Troy McCoy. Epple said he did not know who Chris was close to outside of work. I asked Epple if he was aware Chris had attended a Colorado Rockies game on Sunday, and he said no. And I asked him if he was aware of Chris having a girlfriend or Shanann having a boyfriend, and he said no. Epple said Chris never described the issues in his marriage, and he didn't want to ask because it was not work-related. I asked Epple if Chris was allowed to drive his work vehicle when he was off, and he said no. Epple explained the truck is only for work, and Epple said Chris would work some weekends on occasion, but it was rare. I asked Epple if the employees were allowed to run quick errands on their way home, such as picking up dinner, and Epple said yes. Epple said as long as the employee wasn't driving 30 to 40 miles out of their way, it was not a problem. I asked Epple if employees were allowed to have their families ride in their vehicles, and he said other Anadarko employees have contract employees were allowed to ride in their work vehicles, but they generally do not allow other civilians to ride in the vehicles. And I asked Epple if Chris would have been able to pick up his children from school, and he said, quote, if he needed to, yes, unquote. I asked Epple if he was aware of Shanann or Chris's children ever riding in his work vehicle, and he said, quote, not to my knowledge, unquote. I asked Epple if he is aware of what Chris drives when Chris is not at work, and Epple said no. I asked if he had any information regarding Chris's financial situation, and he said no. I asked him if Chris had ever talked about his wife, and he said he had a little bit. He said they mostly talked about their children because they both have daughters at home. He said he knew Chris's daughters had been very sick over the last couple of years, and Chris talked about the stress it put on he and his wife. I asked him if Chris told him his wife was pregnant, and he said yes. Epple said Chris asked him to keep it a secret because Chris hadn't even told his family. Epple said Chris seemed excited by the pregnancy, and I asked him if he knew Chris's wife was on a trip, and he said yes. Epple said Chris told him Shanann was going out of state and had asked for some time off of work. I asked Epple if he ever saw Chris with both of his cell phones at work, and he said no. Epple said most of his employees do carry 2 cell phones with them at work, a work and a personal phone. I asked him if he had any disciplinary issues with Chris in the past, and he said no. Epple described Chris as being very quiet and reserved, and said he sometimes has to pry a conversation out of Chris. Epple said Chris had been nothing but a good employee. He said he has never seen Chris lose his temper at work and has no concerns about Chris besides what he is going through with his wife and children missing. He said he has not seen or heard anything that would cause him concern over Chris. I asked him if he had spoken with Chris recently, and he said he spoke to Chris last night, which was Monday, August the 13th, and this morning, Tuesday, August the 14th. Epple said Chris is an introvert and doesn't like all of the attention. He said Chris asked to come back to work, but the company said no because they work in an inherently dangerous business, and they were concerned for everyone's safety with Chris's head, quote, not being in the game, unquote. Ethel said he tried to get Chris to come back to work tomorrow, Wednesday, August the 15th, but their HR department didn't agree with that decision. I asked him if Chris had any theories about what happened to his wife and children, and he said no. He said Chris told him the events of the disappearance were something out of a movie or a television show. He said Chris told him all of his wife's belongings and his daughter's belongings were left at the house, and it seemed like his wife just disappeared. He said Chris called him yesterday, which was Monday, and he said he couldn't get a hold of his wife, and his wife's friends also couldn't get a hold of her. Ethel said Chris told him he needed to go home and find out what was going on. He said he told Chris it was fine if he needed the day off to just let him know. He said all of the guys who work for him know his philosophy is that family always comes first. He said he never heard from Chris Monday afternoon and texted him Monday evening at around 9 p.m. Ethel said Chris called him back immediately and said his wife and daughters were still gone, and the police searched his house and vehicles with a warrant. Ethel said he talked to Chris Tuesday, August the 14th, and Chris told him he was tired of talking to the media. He said he was trying to come back to work to get a break from everything, but HR would not approve him returning to work. I thanked him for speaking with me, and I asked him if I could call him back if I had any additional questions, and he said yes. Investigation continues. Going on down, it just shows some attachments. I would assume, since it's with this, that maybe it's from his GPS on his work truck, maybe. Okay, going on down, it says warning, and this was an investigative supplement report on 8/21, and it says warning, contains entities exempt from disclosure. First interview with Nicole Kessinger at the Thornton Police Department on 8/16. Kevin Kovac and Timothy Martinez, and it says they're going to be talking about the victim Bella and the victim Celeste, CC, victim Shanann, witness number 1, Dwayne Kessinger, witness number 2, Nicole Lee Kessinger, witness number 3, Charlotte Nelson. Witness number 3, Charlotte Nelson, continued. Bio unknown. Property number 1, handwritten card. Property number 2, greeting cards 2. Miscellaneous clothing of Christopher Watts. I'm pretty sure we have already read this, but I guess they put it in here again. Okay, going on down, it says property number 4, video interview with Nicole Kessinger on August the 16th. Okay, it says the narrative begins on the following page. I have been kind of anxious to read it because, as we all know, a lot of us think that her interviews and such had inconsistencies in it, and she acted almost cold and just, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot I could say, but, I'll just kind of keep that to myself right now, but I was anxious to see how the reporters actually wrote up these super long interviews they done with her and what they actually took out of them, because obviously when you're watching the videos or you're listening to just the recorded interview, you're not really hearing what they're thinking. You know what I mean? You're not really, and in these reports, most of them, it gives like, well, this is my thought, or it was odd to me that she done this or this. You know, we saw it in the interviews they done with Chris. They thought different things he was doing was odd and stood out, and you know, and so yeah, curious if they see that with Nicole, because we damn sure did, or I damn sure did. So I'm curious to see if they did. So let's get into it and see what they said about it. The synopsis on August the 16th, interview with Nicole Kessinger at the Thornton Police Department. Action taken. On August the 16th, CBI agent Kevin Kovac and CBI agent Timothy Martinez met with Nicole Kessinger at the Thornton Police Department to speak with Nicole regarding this case. Nicole had previously talked with agents from the FBI, however, the interview was not video recorded. I do have that one on my channel here. I will link it at the end of this. That one actually cut off before it was completed, so Nicole asked for a ride to the Thornton Police Department, and Agent Martinez and I picked her up near her home in North Glen, Colorado, and transported her to the Thornton Police Department for the interview. But they did say they went and picked her up. Nicole was present with her father, who drove himself to the Thornton Police Department. So he drove himself there, and they went and picked her up. Dwayne Kessinger, and now keep in mind, this actual interview was like over 2 hours. I even did a pop-up video on this one. And the reason I did that is this one, and if you've watched my pop-up video with this, you see that I called out all kinds of craziness, and I put some comedy stuff in there too, not to, you know, the comedian stuff, it's not to be taken seriously. You know, it was kind of just to drop the edge, because she's hard to listen to, and in my opinion, and 2 hours of listening to her, you know, you're gonna fall asleep if you ain't got something to look at to keep you occupied, right? So anyway, the interview with Nicole was audio and video recorded. We only seen the audio. I would like to see the video. I would very much like to see the video. But it goes on to say the audio is attached to this report. The recorded interview is too long of a file to attach to this report, so therefore it was booked into evidence under this supplemental. To my knowledge, we've only had access to the audio. I would like to see the video. You know, I would. So I'm going to see if I can find that. I'm going to see if that is something that should be public record. If the audio is, right, the video should be as well. So see, I've read this before, but that part right there, I never caught on to. It does have a recorded video, but I haven't ever seen it. Have any of you ever saw it? I haven't. And maybe it'll explain on into this interview why we haven't. I don't know. Prior to starting the interview with Nicole, we had discussed with Nicole about collecting her phone for a download. Nicole verbally consented to a download being done on her phone relating to messages and phone logs between her and Christopher Watts. Another thing I'm interested in this specific interview they done with Nicole is this is the one where she pitched such a fit for them not to bother Jim, the whole quote-unquote leave Jim alone. Well, this was that interview, so very curious to see what they thought about her actions on that. I noted Nicole was very tired during the interview, and she reported she had very little sleep over the past few days. The following is a synopsis of the interview with Nicole. For a complete record of the interview, refer to the audio or video recording. Also, transcripts for this interview were requested and will be attaching to the transcript to a separate supplemental report once it has been completed. Prior to the interview, Nicole provided me with items of clothing belonging to Christopher Watts that she no longer wanted in her home. Nicole also provided me with handwritten card from Watts and birthday cards he had given her. Those items were booked into evidence at the CBI Lakewood office. Copies of the cards are attached to this report. During the interview, Nicole stated the following. She deleted all of Chris's information from her phone. Chris Watts' phone number is a 910 extension. She met him in early June or May. They met at work. He did not have a wedding ring on his finger. He never mentioned he was in a relationship and did not initially mention his children. Well, that's very odd because supposedly before they even really got to talking, these emails between her and Chris, she distinctively said, I would love to have what you have built with your wife and children one day. So, there's an inconsistency, right? But, yeah, there's one right there. One day he told her he had 2 children, and she thought it was cute that he had kids. Okay, we all remember that part of this interview, and he even told her, that sounds sarcastic. Well, that's not noted in here. It's not noted that at first I thought she sounded sarcastic, but she went on a 15-minute talk about how she thought it was cute, so he didn't mention that. And I know he can't mention everything, obviously, in this report, but I think it's important that he should mention what he thought about it, what he picked up on it. But anyway, he mentioned he did have a significant other and they were in the process of a separation. She did not know Shanann's name for a while. She thought he told her his children's names pretty early. Okay, I don't believe that. I'm just saying. I just don't believe that. Why would he? If he said, what's your kids' names, and she told him, and then what's your wife's name? I might know her, I may know her. What is her name, So, Nicole is a contract employee at Anadarko Petroleum in Platteville, Colorado. She works in safety in the office. Chris also works at the same location, but mainly works in the oil wells in the fields. He does come into the office on most mornings. She says they met at work and she manages the gas monitor sensors they have, and she had seen Chris before. He came in for sensors one day and they just started talking. They had a good conversation. One day he told her he had kids. He also said he had a wife, but they were getting separated. He told her this before Father's Day in June. They had never been out on a date to this point and only talked at work. They started hanging out and met at a park near her house, East Lake Number 3. They first met at the park in the end of June or the beginning of July. This was their first meeting outside of work. They had a lot of conversations, talking every day. He was never hostile when he talked of his wife and their separation. He was always kind. To this day, she didn't see any red lights with the way that he spoke about his family. Chris is an introvert. He is reserved around other people. He enjoyed talking to her because he could get out of his shell. Around most people, he did not feel like he wanted to talk. But with her, he was a little more outgoing. He was very relaxed all the time, and he never really got worked up. They never had any arguments, and he never lost his temper, and she never saw him mad or upset. He was always very rational. He was very open with communication and open-minded about things. He was not closed off, and he was kind. They had a lot in common. They were both into fitness and healthy eating. He likes cars and is a gearhead. She likes cars as well, so they talked about stuff like that. He was willing to learn new stuff. He was very interested in what she had to share with him. Yeah, I'm sure he was. Obviously, he was very interested. They got along very well, and Nicole never got an indication that he was having issues. They spent all of their dating time at her place or they went out. And it makes me find it kind of odd that she didn't also tell them that he basically, well, he did live with her for the whole time that Shanann was in North Carolina. 5-6 weeks, he lived with her. He said he didn't even go to his house except to eat and shower. But he spent every night with her. So, I feel like if she had have told them that, and she didn't, during this interview, or even the first one, the one that she had done the day before, I feel like maybe knowing that his last 6 weeks, and during this time of the 6 weeks is when he had turned and made such a change. Even his, wife was saying that in her text to her friend, that when she left, they were just fine. And then when he came up there to North Carolina to be with her during the 6th week, he was a different man. And of course, she had been noticing that way before he got there. She said, he's a different man. I don't even know who he is. Well, I feel like if Nicole had been honest with them and told them that he had basically lived with her, or he had lived with her during that whole time frame, I feel like they would have probably searched her house. And I believe they would have searched her vehicle and her house. But say she's not telling them that, so they don't know that at this point. Nicole had been to Chris's house twice, and both times it was very brief. She did not feel comfortable there, and that is someone else's life and existence, and so she did not want to be there. She respected that as their space. Their space, not just his space, or not just his wife's space, but his and his wife's together. And to me, if she respected their home as their space, then to me, that says a lot. Their space. So obviously, in my mind, that tells me that she knew they were still together. But that's just my opinion, of course. She went to the house very early in the relationship. It was right off the highway in Frederick, but she doesn't know the street name. She doesn't know the street name. There again, that, to me, that's an inconsistency too, and an obvious, well, I can't say obvious lie because maybe she just has a very bad memory, but the day before, her phone said she was Googling his address, his home address. Every bit of it, 2825 Saratoga Trail, she was Googling that. So, but then this day, she don't remember it. Maybe she didn't, but I don't know. She says it looked like others lived there. He told her he was living in the basement, and they were separated and not divorced, but Chris and his wife were getting ready to sell the house. Nicole was under the impression they were taking their time to sell the house. The first time Nicole went to the house was on the 4th of July. Nicole was helping Chris set up fitness apps on his phone, and he invited her to his home. He cooked lunch, they ate, and she left. The weekend of July the 14th or 15th, Nicole went to his house for a second time. And that time she saw a picture of his wife and one of his kids. Nicole questioned why he would want to leave this. They talked about him working on his relationship with his wife. He said they tried working on their relationship, and it was not working. Chris described his relationship with Shanann as a contractual agreement and not emotional. Nicole felt bad about not waiting for him to be completely divorced. Yeah, I don't think she did, or she would have backed off, right? I mean, really. And I'm just talking about the evidence and the facts that's out there. She says she talked him into trying to fix his marriage when he went to North Carolina, yet the whole time he's in North Carolina, she's blowing up his phone, flooding his phone with photos, nude photos of her, and it's just like, I don't know. I mean, why was she doing that? And why was she pressuring him? You need to go see your family. You need to go see your family. Family's important, and that is true. Family is important. I completely agree. At the same time, I'm pretty sure Chris had told her that Shanann and his mother didn't get along, and she knew about the Nutgate thing. She already said that. So it almost makes you wonder, was she pushing him to go to his family so hard because she knew that that would cause more issues with him and Shanann? To me, and it's my opinion, of course, but I just feel like she was pushing him to do all this stuff when he was in North Carolina just to create more chaos between him and Shanann. Go to your families. You need to go to your families. Family's important, and it is. But or was it her place to be getting in the middle of it anyway? It really was not her place. If she was really, in my opinion, wanting them to fix their marriage, then why didn't she just back the hell off while he was up there spending a week with his family that he hasn't even been around his wife and kids in 5 weeks, and hasn't seen his mom or dad or whatever, or his in-laws in a little bit. So why didn't she back off and let him have that time? But she didn't. And everything I'm telling you that she done was either 1, in her phone records, 2, on her phone logs, or 3, it came straight out of her mouth. So there's no fabricating conspiracies or anything here. This is my opinion, all being based off the facts of the situation. And so with her saying that she wanted him to fix his marriage, I will never, ever believe that. Maybe some people does. I don't. And I never will. it was just way too obvious. Anyway, moving right along. He was reluctant to try and work on his relationship with Shanann. Nicole backed away a bit, so he would try to fix his relationship with Shanann. When? That's what I want to know. When? From the time they met until the time he was arrested, literally, I don't see anywhere in any of the phone logs, anything she said out of her own mouth, anything that came out of Chris's mouth, where she backed away. Says she backed away a bit so he could fix his relationship. I'm sorry, I don't care who calls me out on this, but that is a lie. That is a lie. And if you want to fact check me and go back through everything, be my guest, but that is a lie. She never backed off. If anything, she came on stronger, in my opinion. Nicole thought he had a beautiful life going on, and she wanted him to try and fix it. Where? Show me one place or one proof anywhere where she wanted him to try and fix it. Just one. It's not there. You're just not going to be able to show it to me because it's not there. But anybody can show you where she came on stronger. It's like she was sending nude photos to him while he was with his family. I don't know, just like a up-in-your-face thing, like, well, look what's waiting on you here. It's just, I don't know, it's ridiculous. This is all inconsistencies. It's, I don't know, lies. I mean, who can't see this, right? I don't know. She always got the impression that he was a great dad to his kids. She never met his children, and he never asked her to. They had barely been dating, so Nicole was not ready to meet his children. He was in a situation that he was not completely out of yet, and she was just coming into it. So she did not think it was an appropriate time to meet his children. And as I've always said before, I'm pretty sure, like Rourke and any of them, that were making decisions, whether they listened to the audios, I have no idea. But I'm assuming, and judging from the way Rourke was speaking in the sentencing, they went straight off of these discovery documents when they were talking. And even judging from things that has been said later in TV interviews and such as this, I believe everything that is really known to the main people is coming straight out of these discoveries. I wonder if it would have made a difference if they actually listened to the audio and the way she actually voiced these things. Because I feel like the way these are worded in these reports, although it is true, now everything here is true, I don't think it's complete. And you can't get the real feel until you actually listen to it being said or see it being on the video or whatever. Because like the part there with the children, well, the way he explained it in his report here, it sounds like Nicole was being very respectable of the situation, They hadn't been together long and she wasn't prepared, and it wasn't a good time and all this. Well, that's, that sounds very respectable of Nicole. However, if you listen to the audio, it sounds completely different than the way this sounds. When he said, have you ever met his kid? She's like, no, and I didn't want to. And then she goes on to this whole thing about it wasn't the right time and all this kind of stuff, but just those first few cold words. No, didn't want to. You know, that says a lot to me. And the way she said it, it was just cold. And I don't know if Kevin may have looked at her like, wow, okay. And that's why she went into this long speech of, well, it wasn't an appropriate time, but, you know, I want to one day and teach them to paint potting plants or something. You know, it's just, it's different. And I think had the audios been listened to, maybe it would have flagged some bells to them. Maybe that's why we're all out here, or not all of us, but many of us are out here questioning so much about this, because, you know, we did hear the audios and we didn't just read this. So yeah, that's why. But I'll be honest, had I just read this and not ever heard the interview, I probably wouldn't thought much more into it either myself, would you? Because this does sound pretty respectable. But you heard the audio, so you know the other side, the other feeling, the coldness, it's just grandiose. I don't know. You heard it as well. So these reports here doesn't seem as respectable if you've actually heard the coldness in the voice. I hope you know what I mean by this. I hope you know where I'm going with that. It says, he talked to her a couple of times via his work phone. Once they realized they were interested in one another, they stopped talking and texting on his work phone and moved the conversation to the personal phones. He has 2 phones, one for work owned by Anadarko and one personal. And I know Chris said that they always used his work phone. You know, to communicate with each other with. And I'm pretty sure if it was actually they were using the personal phone, like she claims, Shanann would have saw it on the phone logs, right? I mean, I can pull up my phone logs right now, see every phone call that's been made, what time, the phone number, everything. So I feel like, you know, since her friends had been saying, well, do you think he's seeing somebody else, or and all this kind of stuff, she would have pulled up her phone logs just to see. But who knows? But that's the way I feel. Nicole had one phone for work, and she does personal stuff on it. Her employer pays for her phone, but it is her phone. Okay, is everybody out there seeing that? Because so many people said, no, it was an Anadarko phone. That's why Shanann was searched for in 2017. It was an Anadarko phone. Please look at this. And let's debunk that. It is her phone. Anadarko pays for it, but it is hers. You see. So, remember, this is going to be, if anybody ever comes at you with that, and they will, believe me, they will. If you ever mention that, well, why did she search for Shanann in 2017? And they'll be like, oh, but that was an Anadarko phone. You know, somebody else done it before she did. Please tell them to refer to the discovery on page 570 of the discovery. And it says right there, she has one phone. And she does personal stuff on it. Her employer pays for her phone, but it is her phone. Okay? And a lot of you, if you're just into the case, you may not know why that's so important, but it is. Because you will really hear that a lot. Oh, she's not the one that searched for it. It was a typo. No. Rourke already said it wasn't a typo. And he had no clue why she searched for them in 2017. A year before this happened. He has no clue. And then somehow it came about, well, it wasn't even her phone, it was Anadarko's. So somebody else did it. Somebody who had that phone before she did. Nobody had the phone before she did. It was her damn phone. Period. Okay, Chris went to North Carolina, and prior to going, he said he was going to talk to Shanann about trying to fix their relationship. He went to North Carolina in the last week of July. Nicole found out Shanann was pregnant via the newspaper articles on Monday and Tuesday. She did not know this prior. I don't believe that. I just do not believe that. Nicole thought if he could lie to her about this, what else could he lie about? This made her think about his wife being in danger. So if he lied to her, that automatically thought, wow, she's probably in danger. That's a complete flop of a mind right there. How could that, after she had already said that he was great, quiet, never argued, never said a bad word about Shanann, but since he lied to her, that made her think that Shanann was in danger. That's weird to me. That is a complete weird comment. I don't know. Just odd. She deleted all of the information on her phone, call and text logs that had anything to do with him. She was grossed out by him. So she deleted all of his stuff. Well, then why was she still calling him? Why was she still calling him and communicating with him up to the minute, almost, definitely up to the day that he was arrested, if she was so grossed out? I mean, that's a really good question, right? And they found all this out with their phone pings well before the sentencing. So I'm not sure why they didn't come back on her. We need to talk about these interviews we done, because there's some inconsistencies with what you've told us and what we know is fact. But that didn't happen. It was the hurt that made her delete it, and it was the lie that made her come forward. He told her he was in the midst of a divorce, and then she found out his wife was 15 weeks pregnant, and she was hurt. She said a few more things to him, then she just cut him out of her life. That's not what her phone log said. Then why did she wait until the day he went to get arrested and take the polygraph? I mean, if she was going to cut him out of her life, why not do it Monday, right? Nicole met with her dad Wednesday, and they discussed getting this information to the police. So her and her dad got together and talked about everything before she went to the cops. She doesn't have social media accounts, so there is nothing else on her phone. Well, she did. I don't know when. I don't know how long before this that she had deleted her social media accounts, but she did have them because there's photos of her on Facebook that she was tagged in, and some of them still there, a lot of them still there, and you can see where she was tagged in them, but of course now it's not, dark. The profile's not there anymore. I know it. I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, she was tagged in them, so she did have social media. And a lot of people, including myself, I'll go ahead and say it, including myself, think that she probably had other accounts, maybe, not in alias accounts, because She obviously searched Shanann on Facebook. It was on her phone where she was searching them on Facebook while they were in North Carolina on Facebook. And you have to have an account with Facebook to go to profiles. Or you just do. She recalls primarily texting with Chris on Tuesday. She did not recall talking with Chris. She confronted Chris about Shanann being 15 weeks pregnant. And Chris asked if this ruins everything with their relationship, and she told him to focus on his family. She told Chris she knew the child was his and was not from an affair of Shanann's. She continued to encourage him to go find his family. Nicole confronted Chris to stop lying. She said on Tuesday she started to become suspicious of Chris. She said he did not seem to be concerned as he should, and he was more concerned with their relationship. Nicole does not believe Chris ever went to look for his family, and she recalled speaking with Chris on Monday night, and he was sleeping. She thought this was strange due to the situation with his family. She challenged Chris about Shanann being pregnant, and Chris then told Nicole Shanann was pregnant with his child. Chris continued to ask Nicole if their relationship was okay after telling Nicole that the child was his. He also expressed concern for his wife and children during these text messages. Nicole asked Chris to delete his text messages to keep their relationship a secret from his friends. Nicole she told him that she told Chris to delete his text messages too, to keep the relationship a secret from his friends. That's not a good enough excuse. I mean, really? Why would his friends have his phone looking at his text messages, right? So, but she says that's why she told him to delete them. Well, his friends isn't going to have his phone. So that's a piss poor excuse for telling him to do it. Well, Chris says she just said delete all conversations, nothing about friends. Nicole told Chris to contact her after his family was found, so she sat there herself and told Kovac that she told Chris to delete his text messages, and then told him contact her after your family's found. And this was all done now, the night before he went and took the polygraph. None of that seems odd to anyone else. Why she would say that, delete all text messages, sounds pretty damn odd to me. And I don't see how anybody can't think that's odd. A secret from his friends? Really? I mean, what's he gonna do? Walk up with his phone and go, hey dude, read all my text messages? No. But there again, there's no notes in here saying that was odd or anything. It's just casually slung in there in a one-sentence thing in between everything else. Nicole said she questioned Chris what he had done, and he said he had done nothing. Nicole texted Chris and said if he had done something bad, he was going to ruin his life and her life. Chris responded saying he had not hurt his family. And Nicole said this was their last text message on Tuesday. How would it ruin her life if he had done something bad? That's a good question too, right? How, at this point on Tuesday, how was it going to ruin her life if he had done something bad? Obviously, I can see it ruining his life. How's it going to ruin hers? You know, and just right before that, delete all your text messages. I mean, I don't know. Some people just cannot see these telltale signs in here that the stuff she says just don't jive. It just don't. And please don't go off the loop and say I'm throwing any accusations out that she murdered anybody, because I'm not. But I am saying that she knows a lot more. A whole lot more. And she's not saying it. I will say that with all certainty. He responded by saying he had not hurt his family. And Nicole said this was their last text message on Tuesday. At this time, Nicole started to think Chris had hurt his family, as he lied to her and Shanann not returned. She does not have car, purse, or EpiPen. Nicole said she was scared because she did not know who Chris was anymore. But just yesterday she was also saying she barely knew him anyway, so... Nicole recalled another conversation on August the 13th, Monday. Chris told Nicole Shanann had left her wedding ring at the house. And Chris asked Nicole how much she thought the ring was worth. She responded by telling him to go pawn it. Okay, now this was on August the 13th, Monday, when Nicole just, through her own words, said Shanann had just left, And then all of a sudden she says she got scared because she didn't know who Chris was, and this is all Monday. Now keep in mind, they continued to talk until Tuesday night, but on Monday she was also telling him, well, maybe she just went to a friend's house. Maybe she just left her phone there because she just didn't want nobody bothering her. At the same time, this same Monday night, she's telling him just go pawn her ring. He said he was going to get the ring appraised. Chris also mentioned North Carolina, and he wanted the separation, and previously had said Shanann wanted the separation. Nicole said she saw the interview with Chris and said his eyes looked different, and it looked like he did not have a soul. She said he looked like a different man. Nicole spoke with her father about the situation, and they decided to come to the police. She said she wished she had come in earlier, but it took her a few days to process what was going on. Chris never said anything about hurting his wife or children during any of these conversations, and had never done so during the relationship with Nicole. Nicole thought if she was not in Chris's life, his family might still be alive, but not permanently. Now, what does that mean? Nicole thought if she was not in Chris's life, his family might still be alive, but not permanently. Now see, this is all part of the interview that a lot of people has not heard, because the recording cut off, and a lot of people hasn't heard this part. So it's things like that that makes you go, what the hell is that supposed to mean? She does not believe he just snapped. Nicole does not think she is the only catalyst for this event. She does not believe that being in Chris's life may have accelerated the process. Okay, she just said that if she had not have been in his life, his family may still be alive. And then she goes right on to say she's not the only catalyst for this. And she does believe that being in Chris's life may have accelerated the process. So now she's saying she believes that Chris was going to kill his family anyway. Is that what you're taking from this? I mean, how else can you take that? She's saying that his family would have eventually been killed, but she don't believe he just snapped, and she's not the only catalyst for this event. But her being in his life made it go quicker. Now, for those of you that's never heard this part, because that video cut off, what do you think about that? She said Chris and Shanann did not get along well, and their financial life was also troubling. She said Chris was struggling with finances. Now he had a third kid on the way, and she does not know if he could afford another kid. Shanann was not responsive to this financial trouble. Nicole said Chris always told her he wanted a third child, and he wanted a boy. Nicole said she is very financially stable, and Chris said he did not know women like her existed. She likes to give herself a lot of credit, right? I mean, she really likes to stroke her own ego. Nicole feels money is the biggest catalyst for this event happening. I think it was just a perfect storm, period. And she damn sure didn't help matters either. Nicole recalled Chris never told her about his bankruptcy, and Nicole could not think of any answer for why Chris would have hurt his children. The only thing she could think of was that the kids may have seen him killing Shanann, so he chose to kill them as well. She said Chris loved his children. I inquired with Nicole about her friend Charlotte. A text message was located between Charlotte and Nicole that appeared to reference Nicole dating another person. Charlotte is engaged and is her closest friend. Nicole said she never dated any other person, and Chris would have no reason to think she was dating anyone else. She said Chris was never jealous about her seeing anyone else, and she said she had talked with other men on eHarmony, but never had dated any of them. Tim Martinez asked questions of Nicole, and Nicole stated the following. Chris was always more into her than she was into him. Like, she strokes her ego. Chris and Nicole had discussed long-term plans. She said if he did not have the big house, what would his life look like? And Chris said he would have a smaller ranch house. They agreed to have more of a simple life. I barely knew him to, well, I didn't know that much about him, and then to, I knew all of his financial problems, told him to pawn a ring. Yeah, I probably made it happen quicker. I mean, she knows a lot. It's obvious. Way obvious. Chris and Nicole talked about marriage offhanded. These were not deep conversations. She first met him in May or early June. Chris has worked for Anadarko for 5 to 6 years, and he did supervise people. Chris never complained of any medical issues. Nicole never thought he had any mental or psychological issues. Nicole does not believe Chris was dating anyone else. Their relationship was sexual shortly after they met and remained sexual consistently. Chris has sent her photos of his penis and other workout photos. Chris and Nicole were last intimate at her home on Saturday, August the 11th. They were intimate when Chris picked her up before going to the Lazy Dog and immediately following getting back to her home from the Lazy Dog. Chris mentioned that Shanann never let him openly communicate. Nicole knew of no other stressors other than finances. Well, I can tell you one more, and it was called Nicole. Chris mainly complained that Shanann would never listen to him. Chris also said Shanann would talk shit to him in front of his children, and the children were starting to repeat it. Chris said he tried to ask Shanann for something, and she said, "Shut up," and he did not know anything. His children started to repeat this, and it made Chris very sad, and this is when he realized he needed to separate from her. Chris always told Nicole Shanann was a good mom. There was no indication of any abuse or any other concern. I still haven't saw where her dad jumped in and, tried to lead this investigation by telling him, don't lead, and jumping in, and reminding her where they went that Sunday to the museum. Still nothing there of that. So, I feel this is an incomplete report. Absolutely incomplete. Nicole asked multiple questions regarding the upcoming legal process and her employment. No further questions were asked and the interview was ended. Nothing further. Investigation continues. And this just shows attachments and evidence and sheet, what's card, PDFs, 822. Okay, we're going to stop right there because this one got really lengthy. And our next one is going to pick up on, this is the Polygraph, an interview of Chris Watts. And I've already read this, so we won't be doing that one. So we'll go on down past all the Polygraph, and those are on the channel as well. I've already read these out, and they're very interesting to say the least. But yeah, we'll be back real soon. I hope you guys learned something new from this that you didn't already know. I feel like some of you probably did, because a lot of you haven't heard this read entirely, and I know some of you's not read the discovery, and the things that were in this one was not in the recorded, about pawning the ring, and her saying, well, if he killed the kids, it's because the kids seen him killing Shanann, all this stuff like that. I know you didn't hear that if you haven't read it yourself, or heard it somewhere else. So, what do you think about everything? I saw a lot of inconsistencies. I think it's an incomplete report. Her dad wasn't mentioned anywhere in it, and he talked quite a bit in this actual interview. He made himself known, that's for sure. There was no mention of her saying she was sick, couldn't keep anything down. She had been feeling sick, she couldn't keep anything down. There was several things that wasn't in here. There was very few times that he pointed out how he felt or anything that he thought was off. I've only seen that like once, maybe twice, and that was it. And so, yeah, feel like if this is the only thing Rourke went off of, and how would he had much time to do much different, right? If this is just what he went off of, was this discovery? Yeah, it makes her sound like she was obviously knew more than what she was saying, but at the same time, it also paints a picture of her being, pretty decent and respectable. Whereas if you listen to the actual audio of it and you hear the coldness and the just ruthless like tone of her voice and the way her dad jumps in, and then there's even laughing during this and everything, to me, hearing that says a lot. So, that's my opinion. Okay, you guys, you have a great night, day, wherever you may be. And we will be back real soon. This is Unjustified.